Hello again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather on this 9th day of August 2020. I'm Dave Percy, a meteorologist with the National Weather Service, and I'll be hosting today's show. Up first, hazardous weather graphic. High wind watch that was out for the eastern North Gulf Coast yesterday is now ended, and now we have a flood watch out for the greater Juneau area through Monday morning, and Juneau's picked up about half an inch of rain in the last 12 hours, ending at 3 p.m. this afternoon, expecting anywhere from 2 to 4 inches across the area there, not specifically at Juneau, but through late tonight, as much as 2 to 4 inches could fall, especially in the upslope areas of the terrain, and so that's why there's a flood watch out. And from there are no other watches, warnings, or advisories out anywhere in the state, and probably won't be for the next couple of days anyway. Satellite imagery showing that rather strong late summer storm moving right up just south of the eastern North Gulf Coast there. That pushed the front through. Pretty gusty winds. Juneau had a peak wind gust of 51 miles per hour today, and that was only exceeded by Skull Island with 62 miles per hour, which is south-southwest of Juneau a ways. Otherwise, back to the west there, on the other side of the low center, winds gusted 33 miles an hour out of the north at Seward and to 35 miles an hour at Kodiak and the Barren Islands back in toward Kamishak Bay. And that cleared skies out, mid-60s and mostly sunny skies. Kodiak this afternoon. You see a few clouds go down southwest side of the island, but also clearing up into Cook Inlets, the Sitna Valley, clearing over the upper Yukon Valley, Yukon Flats area, and the lower Yukon River Valley, as well as pretty good clearing there, St. Lawrence Island into the Bering Strait. Probably some low clouds and fog in the strait itself, but basically clear skies over the northern Beringen areas that extend down to northwest of the Pribilofs. Out to the west, you can see the next low pressure area and frontal system spreading rain into Adak this afternoon. The main low center is still southwest of Shemya, and the Alaska Peninsula, Bristol Bay, seeing mostly cloudy skies. And north slope, variable clouds with the shower activity mostly in the Brooks Range today, and isolated thunderstorms along the Alaska Range, pretty isolated, nothing really widespread. Rain beginning to increase over the Copper River Basin, especially the eastern and southeastern Copper River Basin. And heaviest rain went into the North Gulf Coast, and of course the Panhandle, along with the strongest winds. You can see the tight gradient there. Just off the coast, again, winds gusting anywhere from 35 to size 62 miles per hour there across the northern Panhandle. Rainfall amounts ranged from about a half an inch at Juneau, as I mentioned. Petersburg and Sitka both picked up 0.6 of an inch of precipitation. Otherwise, Kodiak, before they cleared out, had a half an inch of rain. Cordova about the same, and then much lighter amounts elsewhere. Although Nikolai did pick up about half an inch of rain in the last 12 hours with those showers there over in the Kuskokwim Valley. Kind of hit and miss showers. McGrath didn't have nearly that much precipitation. And showers extended, scattered isolated showers on the southern Seward Peninsula. That increased with an upper level trough that's signified by the two black lines there. Along the southwest coast, showers down into the Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay, Alaska Peninsula. Rainfall amounts anywhere from a few hundredths of an inch to maybe 1 to 2/10 of an inch, so much lighter than what the southeast coast saw. About the same in the Brooks Range. There are those showers on the light side, and high pressure developing there. That's helping clear it out over the northern Bering Sea or northwestern Bering Sea, but low clouds and fog, southern Bering Sea, rain with the next system pushing in toward Amchitka Island. And for tonight, we'll see that system pushes rain and fog into the central Aleutians with small craft advisory level winds, 25 to 30 knot winds. It stays breezy across the Panhandle, but they'll slowly be diminishing, and the rainfall rates will be pretty good this evening. into late tonight. So that southwest flow, still a good shot of rain coming in. So the flood watch out for the greater Juneau area. And rain on the increase again over the upper Tanana Valley 40-mile country. And rain continues in the North Gulf Coast. Rain and showers Copper River Basin. Showers as far west possibly as Turnagain Arm, Chugach Mountains. But that'll be light, whatever does occur. It stays partly cloudy and breezy for Kodiak Island, with those winds slowly beginning to diminish. And a trough keeps it mostly cloudy, variably cloudy, with scattered showers over the southwest part of the state up into Norton Sound and on down into the Bering Sea side of the Alaska Peninsula. It should dry out over the Pribilofs. Look for low clouds and fog over much of the Bering Sea. Throw in the rain ahead of that front. As I mentioned, coming into the central Aleutians, low clouds and fog along the Arctic coast and offshore. And for tomorrow, looking for moderate amounts of rain in the area from Isabel Pass on up to about the White Mountains there. And lighter rain up across Eagle, becomes showery there over the eastern Brooks Range back to along the western Brooks Range. Stays dry over the Arctic coast with light winds, low clouds and fog with the highs up there. And also along the southwest coast. Trough keeps it wet. The upper level trough keeps it wet with periods of rain over the southern Kuskokwim Valley and probably the Kuskokwim Delta. Showers up to the Nulato Hills. Showers into Bristol Bay, Aleutian Range, eastern Alaska Peninsula. And rain spreads eastward across Nunavak Island. Probably have to wait till tomorrow evening to get into the rain for Unalaska Island. And it stays unsettled, but not too windy. Just low clouds, fog, a lot of IFR over the remainder of the Aleutians. Another wet day for the Panhandle, but a lot less wind, and rainfall amounts will be a lot lighter, especially in the north, showers in the south. A couple of troughs still off the coast there, rotating around the low that's hung up on the North Gulf Coast. And we'll see that keeps the showers in the forecast through Tuesday for the Panhandle, but again, lighter winds and the rainfall amounts won't be that much, but it'll still be cloudy and showery and cool. Rain, again, Copper River Basin from the North Gulf Coast. It'll turn to showers in the afternoon, but areas of rain will extend up the east side of the state to showers in the eastern Brooks Range. And a trough brings the increasing threat of moisture to the western Arctic coast. High pressure in northern Bering Sea keeps it dry with light winds. Low pressure southern Bering Sea keeps it keeps it cloudy with periods of rain, fog, and drizzle with those troughs. One kind of hung up, remnants of the trough or the front there along from the Pribilofs to the Alaska Peninsula. And wind's not much of a factor at all. Partly sunny for Kodiak, Bristol Bay, the Kuskokwim Delta, south central Alaska. Afternoon showers over the Kenai Peninsula, but mostly sunny over the central and northwest interior. Lows tonight, upper 30s to lower 40s, Arctic coast and north slope. 40s, lower to mid, or mid to upper for the remainder of the state. And some areas hanging around 50, 52 Kodiak, followed by highs tomorrow, 50s and 60s through the interior. 40s and 50s, North Slope Arctic coast, mid to upper 50s for the Panhandle, and 50s out over the Aleutians and Bering Sea. Lows, 40s, Aleutians and Bering Sea, near 40 for the Arctic coast and North Slope, mostly in the 40s, lower 50s over the remainder of interior Alaska. That'll be followed by highs on Tuesday, maybe 65 to 70, McGrath and Nikolai, and mid to upper 60s, Susitna Valley. Upper 50s, lower 60s for the southeast coast, upper 40s to lower 50s for the Arctic coast.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
On to flying weather Monday morning. First graphic here showing a lot of IFR up over the northern Kobuk, Koyukuk valleys across the central eastern Brooks Range, eastern central North Slope, and about Point Lay or so, or Wainwright, eastward to Demarcation Point, and then some marginal VFR, and then you're back in the IFR, Cape Lisburne, on down toward the Seward Peninsula. But then Seward Peninsula is VFR to eastern St. Lawrence Island, VFR, lower Yukon River, all the way up until you get into the eastern interior there. And then you get marginal VFR, IFR to start along the eastern Alaska Range, down along the border, and the northern Panhandle, including Yakutat, Elfin Cove, and then south along the border there for the eastern areas, marginal VFR, central southern inside waters. Some VFR for the Gulf of Alaska and the Susitna, Matanuska Valley, northern Cook Inlet, and starting to improve Kodiak Island a little bit, still pretty marginal. IFR, Bering Sea, and the Aleutians, Marshall VFR for the Alaska Peninsula. For the afternoon, Marshall VFR for the Bristol Bay area, right on up to the western Seward Peninsula and Nunivak Island. Possible VFR there, Nelson Lagoon. Otherwise, IFR for the Pribilofs and all of the Aleutians northward to St. Lawrence Island. And improving over the interior, a little more widespread area of VFR now, just about all of south central Alaska. Talkeetna Mountains maybe, or western Copper River Basin. Much of the Copper River Basin, especially the east side, will have the lowest conditions throughout the day with IFR lingering eastern Alaska range. And also IFR lingering for Yakutat and Lynn Canal Glacier Bay, especially Lynn Canal and the east side of the Panhandle have the lowest conditions. And for the afternoon, IFR, Eastern Panhandle, Northern Panhandle, North Gulf Coast, IFR, Prince William Sound across Copper River Basin mostly, and then to the central eastern Alaska Range across the Upper Tanana Valley 40 Mile Country. IFR locked in over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians to and along the south coast of the Alaska Peninsula to about Sand Point. Marginal for Kodiak Island, marginal on the west coast, marginal for the North Slope and the Arctic coast. And for Tuesday afternoon, VFR from the North Slope southward to Togiak Bay, Bristol Bay, and most of Shelikof Strait, a portion of Kodiak Fognak Islands. Marginal VFR, Southern Cook Inlet and the Kenai Peninsula. IFR for Prince William Sound into the Gulf there across Montague Island. Some IFR central and central and eastern Alaska range there on up to the Upper Tanana Valley there with marginal VFR, all of the eastern interior, marginal VFR Arctic coast, and IFR again for Yakutat into Elfin Cove, actually extending from Cape Yakataga across the northern Panhandle, marginal VFR over the southern three-quarters of the southeast coast. And Atuvik, IFR to start becoming marginal VFR. Also look for the same pattern and trend there for Adigan. IFR starting the day becoming marginal VFR. May take a little longer than Anatuvik. But Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR. Windy, marginal VFR at times throughout the day, and same thing for Isabel, marginal VFR at times throughout the day. Mentasta, though, starting out IFR, gradually improving to marginal VFR in the afternoon. Tanita, VFR. Portage, VFR, possible marginal VFR at times on the eastern entrance. Chilkoot and White, IFR the entire day. Probably looking at some improvement late in the day, though. And for freezing levels, 6,000 feet with the front and pushing through the jet stream now south of the Panhandle, so you're on the cool side of the jet stream, 6,000 feet there. All of Alaska, really, the mainland, 6,000 feet, and then out over the Aleutians, 12,000 feet coming up just south of Adak and Atka. Icing with that system out there, not a real strong one, so just some areas of isolated moderate rime icing, eastern Aleutians and west central Aleutians. Mixed icing, southwest interior Bristol Bay, as well as along and just south of the central and eastern Brooks Range with the heavier icing there over the eastern interior. Could be some areas of considerable moderate for the panhandle of the rime variety up the east side of the state. And for the jet stream, upper level low just over the southeast interior, just about over the Wrangell Mountains. You can see the jet is south of the panhandle now, blowing right across Kodiak Island. 9,000 feet and 3,000 feet. Gotta go turbulence. Northern Panhandle, light to isolated, moderate chop.
Floating hundreds of miles from Earth, astronauts get a unique perspective of our planet. While they might recognize landmarks, space is the only place they can see the very edge of our planet's atmosphere.
From orbit, particularly looking at the horizon, did bring to mind how thin the atmosphere is. It's like an onion skin around this great big ball of the Earth.
This uppermost layer of Earth's atmosphere, the ionosphere, also overlaps with the very beginning of space. It's the job of NASA's new mission, GOLD, the Global Scale Observations of the Limmendisk Instrument, to study this region, a region that isn't just for astronauts to explore, but that affects humans every day down on the ground. For one thing, this layer of the upper atmosphere helps protect us from harmful radiation and energy emanating from the sun. But in our modern society, it does so much more. It affects the smartphone that sits in your pocket and the radio waves that guide our airplanes. The ionosphere is a crucial layer of the atmosphere through which our communications and GPS signals travel. And when this region changes, it impacts those communication signals. Changes can occur above this region from the sun's activity, also known as space weather. Changes can also occur below from Earth's weather, such as hurricanes and wind patterns. Gold connects the dots between how space weather and Earth's weather shape the upper reaches of the atmosphere. But this region isn't easy to study. The ionosphere spans roughly 60 to 400 miles from Earth's surface, which is too high for aircraft and scientific balloons, and the lower regions are too low to easily study with satellites. What are attainable, however, are the swaths of red and green light shining out from the upper atmosphere. Formed when the sun's rays hit atmospheric molecules, this light, named airglow, comes from green and red bands of glowing gas. Some of the airglow is invisible to our eyes, shining in infrared and ultraviolet light, which can only be seen with scientific instrumentation. Taking advantage of our planet's natural glow is gold. The gold instrument, which is about the size of a mini-fridge, is hitching a ride on a commercial communication satellite, SES-14. The satellite's orbit lies 22,000 miles above Earth, where it can record images in ultraviolet light to monitor changes in airglow across the globe. These images give information on the temperature, density, and composition of particles in the upper atmosphere. Gold collects these observations faster than any mission has ever done before. It captures an image of Earth's entire disk every 30 minutes, allowing scientists to see how the upper atmosphere evolves throughout the day. Gold joins a host of missions studying the very nature of space, around Earth, the Sun, and planets. As NASA ventures farther and farther from home, knowing the nature of space itself is crucial for our journey to understand our solar system and beyond.
There's a new class of chemical compounds impacting the Earth's ozone layer and raising concerns among some scientists. But a new NASA analysis indicates stratospheric ozone could actually be impacted more by climate change and the continued release of already banned chemicals. The Earth's ozone hole is showing signs of recovery, decades after the landmark agreement called the Montreal Protocol that banned many chemical compounds harmful to the ozone layer.
So we know the Montreal Protocol was a huge success. This was signed in the late 1980s when scientists and policymakers from around the world gathered together to try to save the ozone layer.
The chemicals they regulated persist in the atmosphere for many decades. They thin the ozone layer and they create a seasonal hole over Antarctica. They basically take away part of our planet's natural sunscreen, and that increases the risk of skin cancer and damage to plants.
Scientists have projected the ozone hole could disappear almost completely by about 2075, but several factors could delay that recovery.
There are some industrial compounds that are not banned by the Montreal Protocol, but as they enter the atmosphere, they will also hurt the ozone layer.
But the unregulated compounds have a short lifespan in the atmosphere, unlike the chlorofluorocarbons that were originally regulated. So they have a short-lived impact on ozone, and we don't think they'll delay recovery by more than a few years.
We projected by 2050, more than half of the ozone-depleting compounds in the atmosphere will come from long-lived substances banned by the protocol.
Because these compounds stay in the air for such a long time compared to the unregulated, short-lived compounds, they will have a disproportionate and lingering impact on ozone. So any non-compliance with the protocol can have significant consequences.
And the really big uncertainty in ozone layer recovery is climate change. There are many naturally produced ozone-depleting substances that are emitted by the oceans. And as the oceans continue to warm due to climate change, those emissions will increase, and that will further delay ozone recovery.
Scientists want to better understand how climate change will affect ozone recovery.
This is a hard problem. As a scientific community, we need to work on this major issue. We now have a powerful new tool to simulate atmosphere and its interaction with land and ocean to study this issue. And that's what we're going to do.
How can you see the atmosphere? The answer is blowing in the wind. Tiny particles known as aerosols are carried by the air around the globe. This visualization uses data from NASA satellites combined with our knowledge of physics and meteorology to track 3 aerosols: dust, smoke, and sea salt. Sea salt, shown here in blue, is picked up by winds passing over the ocean. As tropical storms and hurricanes form, the salt particles are concentrated into the spiraling shape we all recognize. With their movements, we can follow the formation of Hurricane Irma and see the dust from the Sahara, shown in tan, get washed out of the storm center by the rain. Advances in computing speed allow scientists to include more details of these physical processes in their simulations of how the aerosols interact with the storm systems. The increased resolution of the computer simulation is apparent in fine details like the hurricane bands spiraling counterclockwise. Computer simulations let us see how different processes fit together and evolve as a system. By using mathematical models to represent nature, we can separate the system into component parts and better understand the underlying physics of each. Today's research improves next year's weather forecasting ability. Hurricane Ophelia was very unusual. It headed northeast, pulling in Saharan dust and smoke from wildfires in Portugal, carrying both to Ireland and the UK. This aerosol interaction was very different from other storms of the season. As computing speed continues to increase, scientists will be able to bring more scientific details into the simulations, giving us a deeper understanding of our home planet.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea ice analysis for today. Still, sea ice-free waters from the they're just east-southeast of Wrangel Island, and then eastward off the along the Arctic coast and offshore. There, all the way to Mackenzie Delta. A little bit of ice there. It looks like east of Point Barrow, a little bit there, but otherwise a heavier ice well to the north, and no big changes expected for the next 5 days. For the coastal water forecast, lighter winds coming up in some areas. Will be slowly diminishing, but they won't end altogether, especially in the north. Gale warnings again for tomorrow. South winds 35 knots in the Lynn Canal area. Small craft advisories for the north coast. Southwest 25, 14 to 15 foot seas. And Stevens Passage, south winds 25 knots. South winds 10 knots are Clarence Strait. And west-southwest 15 to 20 on the south coast. Tuesday, lighter winds, all areas. West 15 on the south coast, 7 to 8 foot seas, and then southwest 10 knots on the north coast. Lynn Canal, south 15. Stevens Passage, southeast winds at 10 and 15 knots southeast winds for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound tomorrow, northwest wind at 15 knots, seas 2 feet. Small craft advisories for the North Gulf Coast. West winds 25 to 30 knots, 10 foot seas, and 30 knot winds out of the west, both for the Barrett Islands and Kamishak Bay, with 9 to 10 foot seas. And Southern Cook Inlet, west winds 20 knots, seas 3 feet. Lighter winds, Northern Cook Inlet out of the west at 10 with 2 foot seas. Northerly winds at 10 knots for Cook Inlet on Tuesday, seas at about 3 feet. Lighter winds for the Barren Islands, west 15 knots with the western North Gulf Coast, and Kamishak Bay will be northwest at 15 with 4 to 5 foot seas. South 15 for the Middleton Island area and the eastern North Gulf Coast. Prince William Sound, northeast winds are variable to northeast at 10 knots with 2 foot seas. Kodiak Island tomorrow stays breezy, west winds 25 knots. That's good for small craft advisories, 5 to 8 foot seas. Alaska Peninsula, west-southwest 15 to 20 knots. And Bristol Bay, west winds 15 knots. For Tuesday, they'll swing around to the northeast for Bristol Bay at 10 knots, pretty light. Alaska Peninsula east winds 20 knots, 4 to 6 foot seas, 20 knot winds there, Cape Sarachef to Sitkinak. And east side of Kodiak Island, westerlies at 15 knots, Shelikof Strait northeast at 10. For the Fox Islands, east-southeast 30 knots tomorrow, 6 to 10 foot seas. Southeast 30 knots also for Adak and Amchitka, south at 20, and from Kiska to Shemya, east at 20. For Tuesday, northwest 25 knot winds for the area from Shemya to Kiska. Amchitka Island looking westerly at 20. Adak south winds 20 knots, and eastern Aleutians south to southwest 15 to 20 knots, 5 to 8 foot seas. For the southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, west winds 15 knots, and the Yukon Delta coast northwest at 15, southeast 15 for the Pribilof, south 15, St. Matthew Island, southwest 15 for St. Lawrence Island, and northwest 10 for Norton Sound. On Tuesday, Norton Sound west at 10, southwest 15, St. Lawrence Island, southwest coast northeast breeze 10 to 15 knots, and east at 20 for St. Matthew Island, the Pribilof, small craft advisories, east winds 25 knots. Central eastern Beaufort Sea coastline tomorrow. West winds, pretty light, 10 knots, maybe up to 15 knots there, Kaktovik demarcation point. Western Arctic coast south at 10, Cape Beaufort to Cape Thompson south 15, Cape Thompson to Wales southwest 15. And then we've got small craft advisories on Tuesday for the area from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort out of the south at 25 knots, south 20 knots, western Arctic coast, central coast down to 15 knots. Winds stay light and variable for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast with seas at around 2 feet. And for tonight again, stays windy and wet. Flood watch out for the greater Juneau area through Monday morning. 2 to 4 inches of rain, especially with the heaviest amounts in the upslope mountainous terrain areas there, possibly east of Juneau. Tonight and this evening stays pretty windy, but wind and rain slowly diminishing later on, late tonight and tomorrow. Rain, eastern Tanana Valley, 40-mile country across Copper River Basin, drying out in the west. And next front pushes rain to the eastern Aleutians, at least Unmak Island, tomorrow afternoon. High pressure along the southwest coast. Makes for light winds over the northern and eastern Bering Sea into Bristol Bay. Upper level trough keeps it wet over the southwest interior. Rain eastern interior. Another wet day, but less wind for the Panhandle. Showers in store for Tuesday for the southeast coast.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.